Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to our Automate for Good Hackathon office hours. I'm your host, Kaya Tolliver. I'm a developer advocate here at Chef, or excuse me, here at Progress for Chef. I think it used to saying that. um, and yeah, I am here with our mentors. Today is the Meet Your Mentor session. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited to introduce all of these guys and tell you more about our mentor program for the Automate for Good hackathon. Before I get into that, though, I'm going to go through our pre flight checks. If you are not already following us on Twitter, what are you doing? Um, so go ahead and follow us. We're at Chef. Also, if you are not on community Slack, please go onto community Slack, especially if you are participating in the hackathon. This is going to be the way that you get all the latest information and where you get your support. Also, if you are interested in joining our hackathon, there's still time to do so. We'll go on DevPost, and there's like a really you go on DevPost and look up Automate for Good, and the user experience for signing up is pretty simple. But if you have questions about that, feel free to ask on community Slack. Great. So let's get into it. I'd like to have our mentors introduce themselves and their level, their expertise, and kind of what categories they are um, comfortable mentoring in. So I'm going to start with Jeff. Jeff, why don't you go first?
I'm Jeff. I've been with Progress and Chef for going on 2 years now. Before that, I was a customer for 7 years. Uh, Currently, I am a professional services architect. I used to work pretty closely with Colin and PS, but he abandoned me. So I'm comfortable mentoring in pretty much any topic we come up with. I probably could help Trevor out with habitat and effortless type stuff fairly well, but I touch all of it every day. So um, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Colin.
Thank you. Hey, my name is Colin McNeese. I am a customer architect here at Chef Progress. I've also been with Chef for right around 2 years now. Before that, I was a user of Chef for a number of years prior to that. My background is general sysadmin, infrastructure, DevOps for longer than I care to state on a public record because I already have grays on my face. So, but with that being said, when it comes to the mentor program, kind of like Jeff, I'm happy to help out with all components of the Chef Infra stack, DevOps in general. Kind of go all over the place, so I can dive deep and help with any of those areas. So happy to be here and help people out.
Sweet. How about Trevor? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hey, everybody, I'm Trevor Hess. I'm one of our product managers here at Progress, but I've worn many hats in my time. I've been with Chef for nearly 5 years now. I've been a customer architect, and I've been a partner solutions architect, working on our Microsoft relationship in the past. Now I sit over Chef Infra, app delivery, and our marketplace integrations. But I've got expertise in Azure, in Windows, knowledge with how to use Habitat, Infra, in Spec. So happy to help as much as I can wherever I can. So that leaves us with John.
Thanks, Trevor. My name is John Tonello. I've been with Chef for about 7 months now. Hard to believe. But I've spent a lot of time in the DevOps space and in the open source world. So I feel a lot of the pain that Chef helps solve for a lot of our users. I'm not the pro that Colin, Jeff, and Trevor are, but I've spent a lot of time working with Chef Infra, configuring sort of the initial environment and ecosystem that can get you started quickly, particularly if you're a new user. And I'm happy to help in any other way I can.
Awesome, awesome. And you know what? I didn't get to do. I think it might be really helpful to tell everyone kind of like where you are located in the world, so as far as like time zones and stuff like that. So let's start with you again, Jeff. Where are you?
I'm in Texas, Central Time.
Okay, awesome. Colin, what about yourself?
To change things up, I am also in Texas, U.S. Central Time. So,
To switch it up. Trevor, what about yourself?
I'm also in Central Time, but I'm not in
Oh,
Texas. I'm in Chicago.
Zach, Central Time is really like okay. How about let me guess, John? Are you in Central?
No, Kaya, you and I are in the best time zone. I'm in the Eastern time zone,
East side.
just outside of Syracuse, New York.
Okay, awesome, cool. All right. Well, let's get into some frequently asked questions, and just like a little overview over our um, mentor program for this hackathon. I've got some. Okay. So now that we've met our mentors, let's figure out how your mentor can help the team. So your mentors are available to be your cheerleaders. So basically, they're not they're a part of the team, but not a part of the team, if you will. Like they're going to be empowering you to make your own decisions, vetting ideas, and encouraging teams when things are rough. Because I mean, of course, it's a hackathon. There's a time limit, and it's I mean, just like with real life, things are going to get rough at a time, especially considering the fact that our target market here is people who are very new to Chef and new to our products. But things are going to get, there's going to be some time where um, you're having a difficulty troubleshooting issues. So that's what your mentors are going to be here for. They're going to be connectors into like pointing teams in the right direction for specific technical help, whether it be tutorials, what YouTube videos, documentation. Sometimes, teams or when you're in a position like this where there's a lot going on at one time, you're trying to do a lot. Um, a conversation, you might not find that the conversation or that you find the answer, excuse me, in the conversation at the time, which is why your mentors are going to point you the direction of tutorials and resources. You figure out your issue on your own time if that is necessary. And also, they're there to be a contributor. So they're going to be available to help teams think through and solve specific problems that need human support. So, um, whether it be something where just the extra level of expertise, because maybe the majority of teams may not have a lot of technical expertise with Chef. Sometimes a mentor might be able to jump in and but if a team's been spinning their wheels on a same problem for quite some time, might be able to, you know, put down some what are those called, breadcrumbs, if you will, and support those teams in that way. But also they resist the urge of doing the work, and that's what I mean by becoming a part of the team. The work is on the teams themselves. More than anything, this is a learning experience for each team and each participant. And we want to have our mentors help facilitate that learning experience and not necessarily do the work. So let's see. Next question. What types of things can I ask my mentor? So here are some general questions that you would ask versus things that you wouldn't. Okay. Um, you can ask your mentor if your idea is technically feasible. Specifically, I'm going to reiterate again, we're dealing with people who are very new. Most of you all are very new to Chef, and you know, learning new tech is hard. So you can ask your mentor if they think the idea is technically feasible, because you don't want to go all the way down the road and then find out at the end that what you're trying to do is not, like, our products aren't capable of doing those things. um, you can ask them to help troubleshoot your issue. um, a lot of times you'll be relying on their knowledge and expertise just to, you know, say, okay, well, normally, like, I've had this happen before, and this is what I did to fix it, type of deal. Um, and that's kind of the direction that you would want to go with the troubleshooting deal. You can ask them to view your demo or to kind of like critique it, and for, practice. They can practice your demo. You can practice your demo with them watching, and they can critique you. And you can also help them to, or you can ask them to help you think through blockers. But what you don't want to do is say, "Hey, mentor, what should I submit? What do you think I should do?" Because that's not what they're here for, right? They're here for guidance, and not giving you giving you. I mean, you can get ideas from them, but you have to do the work. That's basically the overarching statement here. Can you troubleshoot this issue for me? Now, this is probably an iffy one. I mean, if you're spinning your wheels over and over and it's not landing, this one this comes back to the human support. They may be able to step in and help, but not on the first try. You need to go through and do the work yourself, and go, like, it's kind of a thing where you need to be able to have these events where you stumble, right? That's a part of learning. But your mentor will be able to, like I said, lay some breadcrumbs and help you through. And you don't want to ask them to just remove blockers for you. You want to go through and try to do it yourself before reaching out to them for that. All right. And how should I contact my mentor? All right. So, anyone who is in community Slack, which everybody should be, I'm going to put this shameless plug here, community Slack.chef.io. You'll be able to reach your mentors in the hackathon channel. Depending on how busy the hackathon channel ends up getting, um, we may break out mentors into a different channel. Um, but we'll kind of see how we'll play that by ear. And all of our mentors have agreed to monitor Slack to answer questions. But they've also agreed to be available to escalate to a different communication method if it's necessary, if a team requires it. So um, pretty much that's how you will interact. Start with Slack and then escalate if necessary. I think that's the last one. What questions does everyone have? I know we've got a couple of people here. IJ Live, what is it's on emote only on Twitch? I think we're on Twitch and YouTube at the moment. And it looks like our viewers are on Twitch. Do we have any questions specifically regarding the mentor program? Cool. Well, um, if any questions do arise, please feel free to hit us up on community Slack. As we stated, our mentors will be there, and that's that. I really appreciate the mentors, Colin, John, Trevor, Jeff. I really appreciate you all for joining us and introducing yourselves. And oh, Kachi says just thanks for having mentors. Oh, okay. IJ Live says you can't write on Twitch. Well, if you go into our community Slack, I if you have questions, I can read them from community Slack and answer them here.
I'd be curious to know if there's anyone that is working on a hackathon project as a team, like at work, or if you're working on your own. Excuse me.
Yeah, that is a good question. Like, who convinced their manager to let them work on this on work time? That would be great to know. IJ Live says he's working alone. Are you working on work time or are you working on your free time? And do you want to be working alone? That's a good question. Because you can find a team on DevPost if you are looking for a team.
Yeah, and since success means money, that could be a good thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Is everybody familiar with the prizes, Kaya?
Should be. However, I think it's a good idea to go through them again just to let's see. Let us see. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay. The prizes, like Chef stepped up for these prizes. Um First prize is $15,000. 15 racks on racks on racks. So if it's okay, um, like if you win first prize working solo, you definitely put out like a fat rat, right? Second prize, 10K. Third prize, 5. Then we have some ancillary prizes, which best implementation gets an iPad Pro. Most promising. Oh, there's a two teams can get best implementation. Most promising idea. It's 4 teams. They're getting PS5s. How they found 4 PS5s, I have no clue because PS5s, like I can't find a PS5 right now in Walmart, but somehow Chef figured out how to find 4 of them. And then everyone that submits gets a swag pack. And in the swag pack, there's a T-shirt for the team, some stickers, and a Badger badge. So it's really exciting. A lot of great prizes, and it's a bunch of motivation to trudge forward and complete your submission. One of the things that I would like to call out though is considering the fact that we are kind of leaving it open as far as what teams can do, as far as long as it's automate for good. Um, I would anticipate a lot of questions surrounding, you know, do you think this idea is a good idea? Which is a perfectly good question for your mentors. Um, the only real guidelines is that it's for good, whether it be the good of DevOps or the good of humanity, and that it uses one of Chef's products. Now, Test Kitchen, we found out on our last live stream that unfortunately Test Kitchen is out of scope. So, this is not a chef product. Sorry, my dog is going crazy in the background. But so you can't do anything specifically, or you can't just do Test Kitchen. If you have something that incorporates Test Kitchen, but also another chef product, you're good to go there. But I expect quite a few questions for you guys about, do you think this idea is good? Do you think this idea will be within scope? Let's see. Um, Kachi said he is working solo and in private because he had to take vacation. Understood. Thanks for the dedication. And IJ Live says they're free and oh no, they're not able to work on work time, but still working on an idea. Appreciate it. Much appreciated for you taking your free time to work on this. Ah, gotcha. You had to ask permission from your significant other for working during vacation. Ha, that's funny. I'm glad that your significant other um, was convinced by the prizes. It's pretty awesome. Thanks, Stop Driver, for the emojis. Oop, can't do those for some reason. Like they won't show up. It's like you can have them, but they won't show up. IJ Live says that you're working on the Chef Infra product and you're looking forward to working with. Okay, that's awesome. I think as long like if you're working with Chef Infra, that's perfect. Pretty much whatever you do with Chef Infra for good um, is going to be within scope. So bring it. Let me check community Slack to see if there are any questions. Oh, okay. I see. I see. I see what you're saying. Is only like emojis that you can put on Twitch. I don't know. I have to check out those settings. Let's see.
It's not normally like that when I watch the Twitch streams. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to definitely check in on that. Um, okay, so I do have a question from Rashab on community Slack. Um, he says I haven't started along with Chef as of now, and he doesn't have a project idea. Is it too late to get started? No, it is not too late. You can still enter if you have not already. And normally these hackathons are like 2 days, right? Well, we've got over 40 days, and let's see how many days we have. We have 34 more days, Rashab, till the deadline. So time for you to decide on a an idea, hit up your mentors for help, and submit something amazing. More than enough time. RG says, "Hi guys, hey RG." Okay. So IJ Live asked if some of the mentors can break down some of the products and their best use cases. Does anybody want to take a stab at it? Do you want to go first?
I can do that. Um, so the things we have included, kind of looking at the different components. So Chef Infra is a lot of things to a lot of people. Typically, when we're looking at Chef Infra, we're looking at building configurations, automating the state of configurations across systems. So we would use Chef Infra to define how we want systems to exist, how we want them to be configured, sometimes potentially, what applications we want on there, things like that. I say sometimes because that when we start working with applications specifically, that's really where Habitat or Chef application delivery starts really to shine from a package management perspective, from running application, building to running and deploying applications. That's really where Habitat comes into play and shines greatly. Coming in behind those two, not to say it's any less, we have Chef Inspec. So Chef Inspec is what we can use to evaluate and report across on the state of all sorts of different targets, whether they be containerized objects, endpoints, actual systems themselves. Inspec is what we can use to evaluate and report on our target objects to see, are they configured correctly? Are they security compliant? We can define human expectations for how we want objects to be configured and how we expect them to be running. And we use Inspec to translate those human expectations into code to define and represent how things are configured. Bringing all these together, we have Chef Automate, which is the reporting dashboard, which all of these feed into as a visibility and notification platform. Was that a good 30-second pitch?
Yes, I think so.
Nice summary.
Yeah, I agree.
And for those who haven't used Automate, and we recognize that there are longtime Chef users who may not have seen or worked with Automate, but all that information that flows from all the tools that Colin just outlined feed into Automate, so you have a single dashboard that you can look at tens or thousands of nodes and their states. Your app delivery pipelines through the application dashboard, your infrastructure itself, whether they're VMs or cloud instances, on-prem physical machines, whatever, and the infrastructure, and the compliance showing, is everything as you want it to be. And it brings together a lot of resources. You don't have to poke at logs. You can if you like to do that sort of thing, but Automate eliminates that. Plus, there's some nice integrations there, for notifications and data feeds that some might find useful, including like ServiceNow integration, Slack integration. There's other webhooks too, so something to think about if you're developing for good for the use of the DevOps community. There's a lot of capabilities there that you can take advantage of.
That's great. Thank you both for that. What about Chef Desktop? That's within scope of this hackathon.
Is that
But
not
how?
tied to specific licensing anymore?
I'm sorry. Say that again, Jeff.
Is that not tied to specific licensing anymore? To use it? I thought it was tied to a specific license to even use Chef Desktop to even get to the content.
It's very possible. Let me double check on that and get back to you.
I would double check that.
Okay.
Well, Chef Desktop as a concept, as a concept of Chef Desktop is really taking Chef Infra, Inspec, app delivery / Habitat, and running not just from a server container cloud target kind of posture. It's doing all that same thing with endpoint devices. That's really the spirit behind Chef Desktop.
Okay. Well, okay, that makes sense then. So then it's not a separate product, really.
It is an offering.
It's a specialization based on where servers don't usually have someone sitting at them and self-installing things, desktops live in environments where you have distributed users, both within might be a single office or offices or across the world, and desktops. In fact, we have some big, long-time Chef users who recognize the value of, gee, we're doing it on servers. Desktops are kind of like servers in many ways, but they have the unique challenges, and desktop focuses specifically on those kinds of challenges.
Okay, that makes sense.
But it's all Chef under the covers, right?
It is.
It's a specialized use case that, what's the difference between your desktop and a Blade server? Not much, except how it's used. The infrastructure itself is pretty much the same stuff.
Cool. RG asks, what's the difference between Chef Spec and InSpec?
Ooh,
This is a fun
I
one.
can take a stab at that.
Take a
if
stab
you
at
want.
it.
John, did you have something?
No, I was just going to say, don't use Chef Spec.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing. Don't use it. What? And there's a caveat there, right? Chef Spec is originally intended for something like, say, a fixture cookbook where you have tons of libraries and resources, and what Spec is there for is to verify that the resource is capable of doing what you want it to do. InSpec is there to verify that the resource did what you told it to do. There's the difference. We highly advise not to use Chef Spec. Yeah, Chef Spec is a unit test. InSpec is functional test.
And InSpec is also what you use as a language for your compliance profiles.
Exactly. And you can write them for everything. Checking if an app installed, checking if app is configured, checking if an API is returning what you want it to. Like, you can get it to do just about anything, but Chef Spec is really only necessary for fixture cookbooks. And most places don't use a lot of those.
Okay, so is that why you say don't use Chef Spec?
Unless you've got some just really complicated custom logic, it's not really giving you the information you think it is.
Right. And if you're thinking of it in InSpec terms, to give you that compliance status, that's not really what it's doing. InSpec is that tool. That's why, when Jeff says it's not giving you what you think it is, it's doing things, but it's not quite what you're looking for.
If you look at the Chef code, like inside of the GitHub Chef repository, you'll see a lot of RSpec/Chef Spec testing in there. Chef Spec is really good for doing in-memory, super fast, heavy testing of the code as it's written. Doesn't actually check to make sure that the code is really going to do what it's supposed to do, but it checks to make sure that it's written in such a way that it should do what it's supposed to do. Which is kind of a weird explanation, I know, but it's really good for when you have very complex coding to test all your expectations and evaluations, different variables, different conditions during a pipeline process. But it's not a substitute for what InSpec can do, providing this is the actual in state. This is what really happened when I ran. So they're kind of complementary to each other at different stages.
The simple way I always think about it is you want to use Chef Spec if you are putting logic into your cookbook. If you are making decisions about what paths you're going down or adding, as Colin was saying, sort of complex things that are happening inside your cookbook, then you may want to go ahead. If you're developing custom resources, you may want to include Chef Spec tests to validate that the paths you're going down are the paths you expect to happen. But if you're trying to test if a resource did the thing that you expect it to do, and that's a resource that comes out of the box, much easier and much more effective to write an InSpec test to validate that the system you're running is in the state you expected it to be in. Otherwise, you're really if you're writing a Chef Spec test for that, you're kind of testing, does that Chef resource do what I expect it to do? And that's not always useful.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Let's see what other questions we have. These are some good questions. I'm happy. IJ Live asks, can Chef be used with AWS Wavelength?
I would ask to say more about what you're looking to do with AWS Wavelength. Um, I honestly was not familiar with AWS Wavelength until I Googled it moments ago. Um, but it sounds like AWS Wavelength is really just a connectivity layer for you. Um, and if that's the case, uh, then if you're looking to use any of our tools on the other end of that connectivity, then they're going to work just fine for you as long as the system on the other side is compatible. So one of their scenarios that they outline is a smart factory. So if those factory machines are running something that you're running inspect tests against, or you're running infrastructure code against, then sure, you can use that in that compatible way. But
Okay. But there's definitely more info needed to give like a definitive answer, is what you're saying, huh?
yeah,
Makes sense. IJ Live, elaborate, and we'll get back to. I mean, yeah, if you want to elaborate on your idea, or even if you want to like take it to community Slack so you can get more in depth, um, that could be a good idea too. But if you're willing to get more in depth time, um, Brain Two Universe asks, for a hackathon, when you say good for the community, we're talking about in general or specific to the DevOps community? Great question. We are talking about both. So or excuse me, um, our topics are specific for the DevOps community, improving the DevOps community as a whole, or improving humanity and everything in between. So just it's very broad. So um, anywhere you want to go within that realm using Chef products will likely be in scope. Um, okay, let's see. We've got. Do we have another question? Oh, RG asks, Chef Conf is the next Chef Con going to become an offline event? I really want to see you guys in real again. Yep, real life. So actually, that's a good question. Next year, we're looking to have a live component within the, as long as, depending on what's going on in the world, we'll look to have some type of live component to Chef Comp. I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do the entire thing as in person, but we're looking to have, whether it be, you know, a conference, whether it be in a conference hall or whether it be like breakout sessions, like kind of like meetups to watch it. Um, we're looking to bring back some sort of in person component because we want to see you too, RG. We want to see you too. IJ Live says he elaborated a little bit more on his idea, but he's talking about a drone hub for short distance drone delivery. Oh wow!
so
So
yeah, as long as that hub is running something that you want to manage and configure, then there's no reason you couldn't use infra to configure that as long as it's compatible. Again, it's going to be more about what that edge system is that you're talking about and targeting than about wavelength specifically.
gotcha. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, IJ Live.
Right. if it's reachable and it has an architecture that can be manipulated, uh, those are the sort of the keys. Even if it's, you know, a lot of edge stuff now is running on some kind of wireless modem. Are those things addressable? And if they are, what's the capacity, the bandwidth capacity to reach something that is, has its network connection through what might be a throughput limited device, but there's low overhead for most chef interactions with such a device.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, IJ Live. Now, don't everybody go and try to take IJ Live's idea, because we'll know. But I think that's pretty cool.
It's
Jeff,
documented.
you did the research, and thank you for that. Desktop config stuff is documented on our site, but since it's tied to premium content offering, you won't be able to access the cookbook needed for some of the resources mentioned on our DevPost site. Is that what you were
Yep.
referring to, Jeff?
No, on our doc site.
Oh, on our doc site.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
there, but a good portion of the documentation points to resources in a cookbook that you can only use if you have that license. So
That's good to know. So then the majority of the folks on this hackathon probably will not have that access. So maybe we can go ahead and pull that off of our site, because that's probably, unless you do have it, it's probably not something that you would use. So thank you for doing that research.
mhm.
Any other questions? I'm checking on community Slack now. We are at 198 participants registered. That is awesome. Oh, we got one more from IJ Live. Do we need to build an app with our system we picked to build? I can answer a little bit of this. I think you can build an app, and you would probably want to utilize something like Chef Habitat to deliver it, so that way it will be within scope. But does anyone else have anything to add to this question, or to the answer to this question?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you necessarily need to build, a a custom app for what you're doing. Maybe the better way of approaching it is more of, you know, this is the hackathon for good. This is the thing that I or my team are trying to. This is the goal we want to reach. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we have this goal in mind. These are the components that we're going to use to get to that goal using these pieces of the hackathon project content, whether it be InSpec, Habitat, Chef Infra, Chef Automate. You know, to get to our goal, we're going to integrate these pieces into it, and kind of assemble it and put everything together. I wouldn't say that you you would necessarily have to go out and create some other complete discrete application to do something with. You could be building something for good that uses other existing processes or technology, um, and then just integrating these pieces together to build this other solution.
Mm-hmm. That's a good,
I,
really
like I
good
can
point.
build the best thing possible that's going to deliver a static page Nginx site. Great. That's probably not going to win the hackathon. But as an example, I'd be using like Nginx and HTML content, but I'm using all these other pieces to get that together and push it out. So
Great answer. Yeah, so that's the kind of the thing. Considering this is like a DevOps hackathon, I'm new to DevOps. I'm not sure. Like I say this every stream, but I come from a .NET development background. Like when I think of hackathon, I think of building apps, right? So this is a new concept for me. So I really appreciate like having you guys on to kind of um, put more of the DevOps perspective on it, because it's non-traditional, and but it's still great. Like, and if you're looking to get into DevOps, this is using Chef products is probably like one of your best bets, because you're able to bring in your infrastructure as code and to make it to where something like, if you're coming from a engineer or from a software development background like myself, it's a lot easier to grasp versus like traditional sysadmin type of things. So awesome. Let's see. RG asked another question. Have we ever tried to run and execute an omnibus command like this command? Reconfigure inside of another cookbook slash chef client run.
Yeah. Do we suggest doing it? I don't, but yeah, I've tried it.
I know there are some community cookbooks that exist out in the wild, which are doing things like Chef Server Control and Chef Automate config, executing different things. It is a possibility.
There's often a better way or a resource to do some of that, which is more the chef way. Like, yes, you can use the bash commands and other embedded shell commands, but they're sort of fraught with peril, right? Because you're executing something that you would be typing, essentially, where chances are good that there are existing chef resources that do that in a better way, in a enabling and starting a service. Are usually require a service restart or things like that, and those are things that you can put in resources themselves based on the status within Chef code, rather than like, would you do a daemon reload? Is it necessary to do that for post some installation or other activity? Yes, it's possible. It's usually not the ideal way.
Gotcha.
The resources themselves, particularly nowadays, there's nearly 250 Chef infra resources that are highly extensible, that can do quite a few things. I know personally, I've only reverted to bash if there's some minor activity. And even then, I've discovered in more exploration that I could have done that with some existing Chef resource.
Yeah, I've in professional services, we are very clear with most people that we interact with. Don't use bash or command or any execute if you don't have to. Don't use PowerShell script if you don't have to. They're kind of painful to guard, and you can do a lot of damage if you don't know what you're doing. So there are plenty of resources in our laundry list to do everything you could really want to, and if we don't have it, pretty easy to get us to create it.
And that's one of the things you bring up a great point, Jeff, too, where you might be a Linux person, sysadmin with not much Windows experience, or the other way around. With Chef resources, it often doesn't matter. Chef figures it out for you if you want to start or stop a service, as opposed to learning PowerShell that you're not that familiar with and cobbling together some script that probably not as secure as you think it is, and executing, rather than leaning on the Chef resource to do it in a proper and trackable way.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Like,
there are a lot of resources like that make it really easy to do a lot of different things. Even installing a package that requires other dependencies or things like you can do that, or even adding a repo. Like I did an EPEL release. I needed that for installing something on CentOS, that can be kind of tricky, right? And you might be tempted to run a couple of shell commands to add the repo. And what do you do about the keys that are associated with that repo? It's crazy. And there's a Chef resource for adding repos for specialized things like that. And you can also, get rid of stuff after it's been used, which is more of a containerized thing. You had a repo, get what you need, get rid of it. But a lot of those activities can be done through existing resources. And of course, then you can bring those resources together, create your own custom resources as well, which sort of sky's the limit. And it keeps you within the paradigm, the Chef paradigm, which is to dramatically minimize the risk and the assurance that you have when you're doing a particular task.
Okay, that makes sense. So, yes, you can do it. It may work, but it's not suggested.
As Jeff said, it's sort of the last resort. And there might be something every once in a while, but
Right.
I wouldn't start there.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah, that's the goal here. Start like working within the parameters of Chef, um, to produce a project for this. Now, sometimes people will go rogue, and that's their prerogative. But what our mentors are telling you is that all you need is here, so you don't really have to go rogue. Rashab, hey Rashab, he asks, what is the difference, or what are the differences between Chef Habitat and Automate, and are both used for deployment?
So Automate's actually deployed with Habitat. And Automate, if you're managing deployments with Automate, you're likely managing deployments of Habitat or your content. As Jeff had said earlier, and Ms. Colin, Automate is sort of a visibility layer right now for a lot of the data coming out of your automation. We're actually in the process of bringing a lot of capabilities around infra from a management and editing capacity into Automate. So Automate is sort of our single pane of glass view into all of your automation that is in your policy world. Habitat is very specifically a tool to build, manage, and deploy applications specifically.
Okay. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Rashab? Also, yeah, great. Also, Rashad, I got your DM in community Slack. We talked about it earlier, but I don't know if you were listening. Your question was, you haven't started with Chef, and you don't have a product ID or a project idea. Is it too late to get started? And the answer is no. It is not too late. You've got. Hold on, let me pull it up. You have 34 more days to until the deadline, and you can work all the way up until that deadline, and it's more than enough time to get started and make something great. So cool. What other questions do we have? We are coming up on our hour, which makes me happy. But if we have some last minute questions, we can get to them. All right. Speak now or hold your peace until the community Slack, because all of our mentors will be there to answer these great questions as well. Um, I think we can call it a wrap at this point, actually. If there's nothing else, I'm looking at community Slack and I don't see anything. And I don't see anything else in the chat. So, Colin, John, Trevor, Jeff, thank you so much for being on and thank you for agreeing to be mentors. This is going to be an amazing journey. And it's going to be very enriching because we're getting new people into the chef ecosystem, which is always great. It's always fun and, sometimes rough, but, that's why we got you guys to help. So, really appreciate you all. I'm sure I speak
Absolutely.
for participants as well. Awesome.
Thanks,
Well,
Kaya.
yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank-
And thank you all for joining. And we will see you all in Community Slack. Now, tune in next week. We're going to start going into like getting started with different products. So we'll do info first, and that's going to be Dan's show. And you'll be able to ask like some questions there. He's going to go kind of high level, but we'll be able to get into depth. So that's going to be next Tuesday, and that's going to be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, we got one more. Brain to Universe. Before we leave, let's ask. Let's answer your question. Hold on. What are your thoughts about using the cloud to generate code versus creating code using Chef? Does anyone have any thoughts about that before we wrap up?
I'm not sure what the question is getting at here.
Can you elaborate a little bit, Brain to Universe? Or maybe we take this one to Community Slack. Oh, okay, let's see. Basically, like if you download all your config in Azure or AWS as script or Ansible.
So if you're trying to download your config to run in Terraform, right? That's going to stand up your cloud environment, not the configuration actually running on those target systems. Uh, and if there's a feature in Ansible to download the config of a virtual machine, I would love to see it because that would be a really really powerful feature.
Okay, cool. Does that answer your question, Brain to Universe? Hopefully it does. I think if you want to get more in depth on this, let's go to Community Slack because we are actually out of time here. I know you guys are busy and probably got other commitments. So um, please, Brain to Universe, if you are not on Community Slack, uh, go there and elaborate on your question. If we have not answered, here is the link to Community Slack. And yeah, we'll see what we can cook up. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye. Till next week.